Iceman. I'm making you the presenter now. So looking forward to hearing your voice, and you can share your screen if there's anything you want to demonstrate for us or talk about. If you want the visuals, it's there for you. So just waiting for you to activate your mic, Iceman.
Hold on. Let me see where this.
Got you.
I'm on, right? Okay.
Yeah, you're on.
Alrighty. Let me see.
You know, there's an old rock song. Your handle reminds me of ice cold water running through my veins. So, Iceman, very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you, Barry.
Okay, let me see what which.
So you have a screen share option. If you're showing charts, that's fine. You could also show your website later. And
okay.
I did have some time to go to your website early this morning, Barry, and what a great story you have. I read your bio, and amazing story. In fact, a story that many people go through when they're making the transition of being a part-time trader, trying to learn the business, to eventually becoming a full-time trader. So if you don't mind, Barry, I know the story, but our viewers and listeners don't. Maybe you could give us a brief synopsis of how you got from point A to point B to now becoming a mentor, teacher, educator, trader, to owning a construction company and trading part-time, starting with penny stocks and eventually moving to big board.
Definitely. Okay, so I need to see. Gosh, I'm trying to figure out which.
It looks like it's the natural or UGAZ 5-minute chart one day.
Okay,
So
I'm trying to figure out which. Gosh, I know I have the little thing on the side, the little tab on the side. I'm trying to. Is there somewhere else that I need to look at? For me to see which chart I'm showing, or get a screenshot of the chart itself that I'm showing, so that I'm not.
You should be able to just look at what's happening in the webinar right now, but whatever whatever screen you selected, and I'm telling you what you're showing.
Right, the UGAZ 5-minute chart.
Right.
Okay.
But you can't see it.
Right, at least I know what I'm seeing there. I just want to make sure that.
I just saw your cursor move around a little bit.
Right, okay.
All right, so why don't you tell us about how you got started and the broken road. God bless the broken road that led you to Iceman Academy. So
definitely.
Why don't you tell us the story?
So I started off. Well, first of all, I came from a construction background. So I had my first construction company when I was about 17. I wasn't old enough to open my own corporation at that time, so my dad opened it for me. And so I've been pretty much in self-employed for my entire life. I've never actually worked for anybody. And when I got married and had kids, scheduling just started to really mess with my jobs and my sites. And once my daughter was born, I figured I needed to transition into something else. I was already kind of looking into stocks, and it was a funny story how I got into it. Honestly, we were on vacation, and one of my friends was looking at his mobile app on Scottrade and showing me some of the stuff that he owns, and I'm thinking, well, how come I never knew about this? And so I started to look into it a little bit, and this was about 6 years ago, and I got into it, and I liked it, and I felt like this was something I could do. Once I sink my teeth into something, there's really no stopping me as far as being dedicated to it, and as far as trying to make it work. And so I started to trade penny stocks, and the penny stock life. Got into it, made a ton of money at the beginning. Thought this was the holy grail, obviously, the big life. And then I dumped a ton of money into it and lost all of it, all of the gains, plus all of the all of the money that I had pretty much went back broke, and so then I realized, well, this can work. I can do this. I just got to figure out how to do it the proper way. And so stuck my
So
head in.
why don't you just maybe, I know it's not a pleasant memory, but how were you able to get through that period? I read how it did affect, when you go through a period like that, it's hard not to bring it home. It's hard for it not to affect other things you're doing. How did you get through that period? What were you leaning on to give you strength besides your wife?
You know what? My wife was my only support. You can't go around telling friends that you just lost all your money. You really have nobody to talk to as far as, well, how do you end up getting to a point where you're almost broke in life, right?
Yeah.
And so this isn't something that you can relate to anybody. And so my wife was my main encouragement. She said, you know what, you can do this. She said, hey, we're gonna get through this, and you're good at it. You just got to figure out what you're doing that's wrong. And so, there was a point where I didn't have any money to fund my account, but I did have a nice truck. And I ended up selling my truck and taking my money, putting it into an account. And I started off with a simple strategy, which was basically the 813 strategy. It's in one of my webinars. But my main focus was for consistency, to figure out how can I do this consistently. So my goal was set up pretty simple, to make $50 a day for 30 days straight. And so after that 30 days, I did it for 60 days. I didn't get quite to the 90 days, but my goal was pretty simple. Let's just try to figure out how we can make money doing this. And so that's how it pretty much started off.
What a great example of the saying that behind every successful man is a good woman.
Oh, for sure.
You don't know how many stories that I've heard marriages go south after an experience like that. So your best trade was marrying her, Barry. In my
For sure.
extremely accurate and humble opinion, it's pretty unusual for someone's wife to support them to continue trading after going through what you went through. So count your blessings.
Thank you. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So you went back to small ball. My guess is that period that when you took those devastating hits, that you were increasing leverage and size and were trying to get your money back, and you were involved in some type or form of revenge trading, thinking that maybe one or two big trades would get you back. And then you had the epiphany that you have to, crawl again before you run. Crawl, then walk, then jog, then sprint. So
Yeah.
you got back to what worked for you originally.
Right. I mean,
Go ahead.
when I it's all mental, right? Now that I know what I'm doing, and I feel like I have a really good grasp on the reality of trading. I quickly realized that that revenge trading, that using too much leverage, all of that stuff is kind of put there. I think it's sometimes it's a downfall, having leverage. I feel like people tend to want to use all of that leverage, and I ended up doing that myself. Obviously, at the beginning, I was taking trades that were 10 times the size of my start-in trades, just because I needed to make that money back. I realized that it was not. It's not meant to be an overnight success type of story. And if you do get to that point, where you start off trading and then suddenly you're just fantastic at it, there's that point where you're gonna hit a top and fall really hard. And I think the best lessons in trading comes from losing money. I know it's a sad thing to say, but the best lessons come from going through the experiences of actually losing money and actually trying to find a strategy or system that works for you to try to recover that. It's all mental, though. I mean,
Yeah, a lot of psychology. So
yeah.
I also read that you're self-taught. You did not have a mentor yourself, and you didn't try and learn from quote unquote gurus online. but that you basically everything that you do probably currently is something that you came up with that worked for you and your personality. So I see your setup on the UGAZ chart, and it looks to me like you have a lot of different moving averages. Is that what they are? The blue, the yellow, the red, the white?
Yes.
Moving averages? Okay.
Right. So my strategy is basically an 8-13 strategy, which is the 8 EMA and the 13 EMA. On that chart, that's the same chart that I shared to my chat room. I usually I usually use the 8-13 as an entry signal for my trades, and it's across the time frame. So if it's a 8-13 crossover on the daily chart, I can take a swing position, like on you guys, for example. We're long on you guys. We're long on natural gas, basically. So it's a simple strategy, but it depends on your time frame, right? Because I'm a day trader mostly. I've been doing a lot more swing trading, but I'm a day trader, so I'll take something like Roku here into the open, and if I get a point out of it, I'll be happy with that. So it's more so of a quicker gain type of a strategy. I'm not a scalp trader.
Okay, so on your day trading, is this the time frame that you focus on during the day? The
5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll start off on the 5 minutes. If my trends are continuing, I'll switch it to a bigger time frame, like a 15 or 30 minutes, because that allows me to decide if I want to keep a chart overnight, if I feel like it still has continuation to it. And so I'll switch up to bigger time frames as the charts are progressing or trends are progressing.
Okay. Well, it's a good thing you're self-taught, because most people teach the opposite. Yeah, so
self-taught for sure.
You knew your personality and what you wanted to do, and you developed this for your personality. Because if you're a day trader, you want to be right away, or very close to where you're entering the trade. And if you're looking at a 4-hour chart, that may not be the case, but shorter time frames do that for you.
Yeah.
And then you go to a longer time frame to manage it, to see if you want to turn it into a day trade or a swing trade. Do you believe in taking partial profits when you're day trading?
Oh, definitely. I take what is called a paycheck. That's kind of the word that I use.
I like it.
My paycheck is the only way to pay my bills, to make my account grow, to keep it steady. So even if I take a trade and my paycheck's $150 on that trade, that's my paycheck. That's my money that I'm gonna secure. They can't take it back from me. I can't give it back on the trade, and anything else I count as a bonus. So if I add into the trade, if the chart continues to go, all of that is my bonus on top of my paycheck. So I do take that first paycheck in increments. Sometimes, if it depends on if it's whatever X amount of dollars, I usually take that paycheck kind of quickly, bank that money, and then everything else that comes after that is a bonus. So sometimes I'll have a trade that has a $100 paycheck and then a $500 bonus check. So,
and you have to work overtime for that bonus, meaning you have to hold it longer. So, you know what, it's interesting, the terminology you use. You're a speculator with a working man's attitude. And,
right.
I think it's refreshing, because most people have it, but then when they get to trading, all of a sudden they become something else. And, I'm a big believer that you have to get paid every day by taking partial profits to be there, and then let them run. But I like that paycheck and then a bonus check. So very cool, Barry.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it has to work out like that. Other than that, what sets in, it sets in with all of the emotions, and it comes into that greed thing. And I see so many traders that would, say you take a trade at $10 and it goes to $11 or $12, and then nobody's taking money off the trade. But why not, right? And then they can watch it go back to $10, and they'll end up going flat on the trade, but they won't take money on the way up. And if you can't grow your account, then what's the point of doing this, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a job.
Till you take it, right, buddy? It's never a profit till you take it.
Yeah,
So,
it's a job.
Yeah, it is a job, and not an easy one. So How many years would you say, I've asked this question to many of my guests, you had early success and then you had your speed bump. How much time did it take you to become consistent again and become a trader that consistently had paid checks or bonus checks, and perhaps you keep track of what your hit rate is? What would you say your hit rate is on a trade?
I mean, my average win rate right now is about 62%, which is fantastic.
It is.
You know, it's a great win rate, especially when the ones that do win, they get added into, right? They get pushed forward. So a loss on a trade can be $100, and a gain on a trade, a good one, can be $500. So
So do you take into consideration before you go into a trade, or you have no idea what the risk to reward ratio is when you go into a trade? You just let the market tell you?
Well, I take a setup based on on a flag breakout or an opening range breakout, new high of day breakout, stuff like that, and then my risk are always at that next breakdown. So if I'm long on a position, it's the risk is always to the last pivot point, because obviously if that last pivot point breaks, the chart's invalidated, right? So
Okay, so this might be a great live example. So we're looking at this 5 minute one day,
on
and
you
your
guys.
moving averages have not crossed yet, but the price action is back underneath those two moving averages. What do you do in a situation like this?
Well, in a situation like this, we already went long pre-market into this crossover here,
Yeah.
and so we already went long there, and that price was about 76.50, and the chart went up to 79.50. Members already banked on that chart
Okay.
already, and
Okay.
so we're kind of done with that already, right? So
Okay.
basically, if I was to get in, if I was to get in somewhere about here, and then the chart goes up, you know, you take paycheck and you end up selling, you know, wherever that price crosses back where your last sell was, it's enough to get out of the trade. There's no reason to stay in it after that, because then
Okay.
you're dipping back into your paycheck. You can't pay your employer, right? So once you take
Okay.
that paycheck, you can't give back money on the trade.
Okay. So, what kind of screening do you do? You cover a lot of things, and there's so many different options and instruments and issues and ETFs and everything to trade. What's your screening process like to decide what looks like a good trade? How many things do you look at in your trading universe?
Well, my trading universe is pretty extensive. I have about 15 different scanners that I run during the day based on volumes or crossovers or block trades, stuff like that. I look at a lot of ETFs. I do trade a lot of ETFs. And so they give me kind of a basket idea. Say I'm looking at SOXL, which is a semi ETF, and if that's pushing to the upside, then I know I can jump into an NVDA trade, an AMD type trade, an MU type trade. So I kind of look at my ETFs as a basket directional setup, and then I go to an individual chart and pick a flag setup or a breakout setup or something and associate it with that. So say for example, you know, natural gas, I'm looking at the futures charts pulling back a little bit. I wouldn't jump into you guys again until I figure out where this is going to settle out, you know. And you know, if we do some simple lines on this, you'll be able to see where this chart gets completely invalidated, and that's right there. So expecting that chart to bounce right at that trend line would be reasonable, but being that the volume's coming down kind of heavy on it, I wouldn't put money into that because I don't think it's worth the risk at that point.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up volume. That's something else I read, that you place a lot of emphasis on the volume. So, what are the parameters for volume that light up the light bulb to tell you there's something there? What high volume block trades, or what is it in volume that you look for?
I look for honestly, I'm very visual, so I'll look at relative candle size for that trade. So say for example, you're looking at you guys down at the bottom here, you'll see that there were a lot of sellers on this chart into this pullback. So and then the buyers came back in kind of slight. They didn't come back in really heavy with the buying. And so for me, outward wise, looking at this chart on a 5 minute, I'd say, well, maybe we sell into the pops into a chart like this at this point on the 5 minutes. You know, it's obviously comparatively different from the daily chart, but on the 5 minute chart, I'd say, well, hey, we have a lot more sellers than we have buyers. So maybe instead of taking this chart on the long side for the intraday move, maybe we look at it on the short side, because I can see that even into this pull, you can see that that candle is extending to the upside on the volume sell. For me, I think always there's volume precedes price action, you know,
Okay.
and so you
So
have
it's
to have a buyer,
volume
right?
per price. So
Right.
if you'd like, Barry, you could show us your website and talk a little bit about your business model if you'd like to do that now for a wrap up.
Okay. So let me grab this
That
and
looked
see.
like a stop hunt on the 5 minute chart. Took out the lows and now everyone
You
who
know,
got out
and
is
that
yeah,
trend line can come right
yeah,
back into play there at this
right,
point, you know. And if even if I was on this trade, say for example, I did take that trade at the trend line, my stop would have been under here. I would have gotten clipped somewhere about there. So I would have been
right.
done, you know. It's not worth the risk. Let me see if I can bring my website up on here. Let me know if you see the entire thing or just partial. Because I'm
Still
not.
looking at UGAZ.
Oh, you are? Okay. Now I need to see how to get that screen on there. Anyways, the website is IcemanTradingAcademy.com. Um, I would
Okay,
love to be able to change this now.
maybe I could show it for you here. Hold on a second.
Interesting.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm trying.
I'm gonna show it for you. So I'm gonna make myself the presenter here.
I don't think I have as much.
Here we go. I'm gonna do it. Show my screen. Okay, so I'm showing it right now. Iceman Trading Academy, home, about, charts, education. You have a chat room. You have a pretty big crew. Are these other people? They work in the chat room with you and they trade your methods, or they have different methodologies?
We were a group of small group of friends first that kind of started this off. We have similar ideas, but I do like to bring in people with different views on things, right? And
Right.
so they all have their different fields and sectors that they're really good at. Fibonacci's, you know, crude
I see.
sector, low float charts, stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Well, Barry, I want to thank you for taking the time to address our community. What a great story, and really the journey. I'm so glad you made it back to the other side, and it says that you love to teach, and I can relate to you in that way, my trading warrior brother. What good is anything until it is shared with another?
That's right. That's right. It's been a pleasure, Dale. Thank you for doing this, and maybe we can do another one some other time. Have
Okay,
a
thank
great
you
day,
very
Dale.
much. And you could, everyone, you could follow Barry at Iceman Trading on Twitter, and there's his website, www.icemantrading.com.
Thank you very much.
All right, Barry. Good
Take care.
hunting. Have a great 2018. Keep in touch. You're
You
now
too.
my trading warrior brother, like it or not.
I got that. That's good enough for me.
All right, bro.
All right.
All right, Face. Have a great day the rest of the day. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings, and we'll wrap up the week tomorrow. Hope everyone's having a nice week, and thanks for your attention. You're very welcome, Kareem. You're welcome, Tom. You're welcome, Joel, Abdul. See everyone tomorrow. Good hunting.